I want to start off by asking you all a question. Do you feel as though you are living in a world where everything is already decided and predetermined? Things such as who you are, your success, and even your options. We're told who we are before we even get the chance to decide what we could become. What if the real crisis is neither political nor economic? What if the crisis is our loss of the ability to become something new? Deleuze, the strange, quiet, chain-smoking French philosopher, spent his entire life fighting against this very possibility, against fixed meaning, against pre-made identities. Deleuze once wrote, "Philosophy is the creation of concepts, not the defense of tradition, not commentary, creation." Hello and welcome back to another episode of Popular Philosophy, where in this episode we are beginning to wrap up the series on postmodernity with the central figure, Deleuze. So today, let's tell the story of a man who believed that life is not about what we are, but about what we are becoming. So part one, the life of a strange revolutionary. Deleuze was born in 1925 in Paris. During World War II, as a teenager, he saw his friends arrested by the Gestapo. One of his teachers was deported to a concentration camp. Philosophy wasn't abstract for Deleuze. It was a matter of survival and resistance. But Deleuze was not a celebrity like Jean-Paul Sartre or dismissive like Albert Camus. Deleuze was quiet. He taught in high school for years before publishing any major text. And yet, the thinkers that shaped Deleuze were explosive. Thinkers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, Benedict Spinoza, David Hume, and Henri Bergson. Deleuze loved philosophers who broke systems, who wrote in fragments, who saw life as movement. In Deleuze's famous 1991 work, What is Philosophy? He says, "Philosophy is the art of forming, inventing, and fabricating concepts." So this leads us to part two, breaking reality, difference, becoming, and of course, Deleuze's engagement with the famous concept of his rhizome. Western philosophy, from Kant to Plato, Adorno will say, Hegel as well, search for identity. What makes a thing what it is? Deleuze said, that's precisely the problem. Reality isn't made up of static identities. It's made up of differences, flows, and creation. In his famous 1968 work, Difference and Repetition, Deleuze says, difference is not diversity. Diversity is given. Difference is that by which the given is given. To put this simply, identity is something stable. Difference is about movement, tension, and creation. For Deleuze, you are never a finished thing or finished product. You are always becoming. You are becoming an animal. You are becoming a man. You are becoming a child. Becoming is not imitation. You do not act like a person or act like a wolf. You form a new way of living that never existed before. So this brings us to the concept of Deleuze's rhizome. Most philosophy is like a tree. There are roots, there's a trunk, and there are branches. In some sense, you could say there's order, hierarchy, and origin. For Deleuze, this is suspicious. He thinks that the world is more like a rhizome, a root system with no center, spreading sideways, unpredictable, like a network of connections. In his famous 1980 work, written with Guattari, A Thousand Plateaus, Deleuze says, a rhizome has no beginning or end. It is always in the middle, between things. So this brings us to part three, desire, power, and why it matters for us today. Freud says that desire comes from what we are missing. This is a theme that I have observed throughout the history of philosophy, and something that I believe that Plato's Symposium directly gets at, that we will cover later, but not at this moment. For Deleuze, he says that desire is not a hole or some kind of lack. It's a motor. It produces reality. In Anti-Oedipus, Deleuze will write, desire is a machine, and the object of desire is another machine connected to it. Today, social media, AI, in our economic systems, they do not control us by force. They shape us by what we desire. They don't say obey. They say, this is who you are. This is why Deleuze matters, because he asks, can we still become something else than the script that we're given? He writes in Postscript on the Societies of Control in 1990, a society of control is being born that is no longer disciplinary. So you can see how this is contrasting with some of the themes that we covered with Foucault. So this leads me to my closing point. Where does that leave us today? For Deleuze, perhaps the task of philosophy is not to define who we are, but to defend the right to become something new, to resist systems that label, analyze, and predict us. Because for Deleuze, to live is to create. To think is to break open a new path. Thank you all so much for joining us for another episode of Popular Philosophy. If you found this video to be helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. I look forward to bringing you all more content in the near future.